And it's funny, he's always been a big supporter of my music as a kid growing up. So I really admire him for that. Most parents could be like, heavy metal, that's the devil, whatever, we grew up a Christian home. But he's always been encouraging. Used to drive my drums to little high school shows at lunch and stuff like that, and Battle of the Bands things and tri-school fairs, all sorts of stuff. And even when I got in my early and late 20s, I'm 42 years old now.
You don't look it, Greg. You don't look it, I have to say.
I got that baby face, But yeah, when I was like in my 20s, he would show up at big concerts we used to perform. And these were like, headbang and mosh pit things going on. He'd just sit in the back, and drink his club soda or a water with a lemon in it. And he's just like, man, that's some crazy stuff. You're going to go deaf one day, but that was a great show. Why is everyone spinning around and elbowing each other? I'm like, it's all camaraderie. You fall down, they help you back up. They're like, oh, hey, bro, it's like, those are my people, Yeah. But he's always been a supporter, whether it was my drums growing up, transferring into guitar by the time I was like 13 and stuff like that. See, that's how that started. My stepdad played guitar. Yeah. He's a super cool guy. He tinkers around and always does, plays his Johnny Be Good or tinkers around on his ukuleles. And when I was a youngster, he gave me an acoustic guitar and was like, hey, here's an acoustic pickup. You can put a pickup in it and kind of get an amplified sound, since I didn't have an electric. I was 13 years old. And it's funny because the craze today, I get a lot of flack for making fun of it, but how the HM2s are coming back and the metal zones. I had these when I was like 13. They weren't considered your high-end boutique sounding pedals, but that's how it started. I was 13 years old. I got a metal zone. Yeah. I put it through my acoustic pickup. And I was like, it's not an acoustic anymore now, is it? And that's how it all started. I was tinkering around with power chords and regular chords, listening to the, Beatles from Black Sabbath to Priest, and just got that early start. Now, when I say Beatles, I wasn't, God bless them, they changed the face of music, but I was not into the I Want to Hold Your Hand and Let It Be. Those are great songs. In fact, that's Kurt Cobain based most of his writing off of earlier Beatles, but I liked the White Album, the Revolution stuff. That was where, they got out of their norm and their shell and but yeah, that's how it all started. An acoustic guitar with an acoustic Seymour Duncan pickup
and a metal zone
right in the hole and a metal zone pedal. So when everyone's like the new HM2, I'm like, are these really that big of a thing? Like, I know they're cool. They got an iconic tone for that Swedish death metal vibe, but it makes me laugh a little bit that it's like, let's revamp the HM2. And I'm like, I remember selling that when I was 14 or 15 years old. And, sometimes on these forums are like, oh, what'd you sell it for? Another heavy metal pedal? It's like, no, I really wanted a flanger so I could play Ain't Talking About Love by Van Halen. I wanted that phaser flanger sound, and I don't know. I've rotated through so many of those little black pedals, the hyper metal, the heavy metal, the metal zone, and they're awesome, but they kind of have one sound that you're after.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this music that you got into, like the Beatles and stuff like that, where did you get the influence? I mean, was your dad an influence to that? Did he pass sort of that music on to you at all?
That's a good question. Earlier on, I kind of got into that stuff myself from that's a good question. I got to go back a bit here. To be quite honest with you, my dad likes classic rock, but then he also likes, I don't know what you categorize it as. What do you call Tom Jones?
Oh, crikey, how would you categorize it?
That's not big band, is it?
Rock and roll, pop-ish sort of thing. Yeah.
My father was a huge Elvis guy. He loved Tom Jones, but he also liked Led Zeppelin and Leonard Skinner.
Right.
Molly Hatchet was one of my favorites. Now, my stepdad was into the Beatles. That's where I heard Beatles. He was into interesting stuff like the Alan Parsons Project.
Yeah.
Joe Satriani, Steve Vai. He liked those kind of guys, like Surfing with the Alien. I heard when I was just a youngster playing drums. And now my mom, on the other hand, my mom's hilarious. She's only 4'11". She's little. And growing up, I remember when I first started getting into drums, I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I can remember this. She would put me in front of MTV and I would watch Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Rat, The Cars, all the stuff that was out in my generation. I was born in 78. And she was into Def Leppard. She was into Aerosmith. She was into the Scorpions. Some of these bands early on, that's what got me into the heavier vibes. So when my father remarried, my stepmother Charlotte was into the really heavy stuff. And then I got introduced to more the Black Sabbath, the Deep Purple, Motley Crue once again. So that's how it all started when I was younger. But by the time I was about 13, my stepmother gave me her old records and a record player and said, oh, you can have all these, and now I got to hear Dio. I got to hear Rainbow. I was in love with that stuff, especially because drums were my first instrument. I still play them. They're sitting right here.
Yeah.
But that was my main thing growing up, was once I got my foot deep into classic rock and then the hard rock and then the earlier new wave of British heavy metal type stuff coming out, that's when it all switched. By the time I was around 16, of course, I loved the Metallica and the Megadeth stuff, but I was an old soul. People are like, oh, did you hear the new Megadeth? I'm like, oh, I got all that stuff, but have you heard King Diamond?
Yeah.
They're like, who the hell's that? I'm like, yeah, have you heard Mercyful Fate? They're like, who's that? So I like some of those bands going up in the past, Saxon, those guys were great.
Yeah.
So that's where I got my start, and my love for guitar started out, obviously being a drummer and starting out in little bands. I was in bands all through junior high and high school and stuff like that. But my biggest influence is really funny for guitar. He didn't teach me guitar, but it's funny. You just put out that post saying the riff master himself, pedal demo guru. The guru in my mind is Andy Martin, Andy Demos from Pro Guitar Shop, Reverb, and now just, I believe, Andy Demos.
Yeah.
We went to junior high and high school together. Not a lot of people know this because I don't really throw it out there all day long. And when we were in junior high, we started just a jam band, just me and him. And every weekend and every other day after school, he would come over to my house. His dad would drop him off. We were just kids. And for kids, I had a really nice pearl birch kit and all the nice Zildjian cymbals. Over the years of birthdays, I got all the nice stuff. And he would come over with a Marshall Plexi and cabinets that his dad made with old vintage Celestians and stuff like that. His dad's I didn't know if you knew this, but his dad makes guitars. He owns a company called Red Tail Guitars.
I remember you saying before, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he was my biggest influence. He would always come over and jam these Zeppelin songs, these Sabbath songs, Rush. We got really into Rush, and of course, Deep Purple and AC/DC. And as I'm drumming, just rocking out, learning these songs, I'm watching him. And I realized early on, I was like, you're getting a lot of good tone from your fingers. He's like, yeah, tone does come from the fingers. I was like, yeah, but you're not using a pick. You're not even using like the sharp edge of your fingernail. You're just getting a good solid rock tone. You know what I mean? Now he's not getting that articulate pick attack like the metal stuff I play and things like that. That takes a different vibe altogether. But the way he played, and when he wrote his own original songs at like 16, 17, and 18 years old, I knew this guy had something special. We both played in bands together in high school, going up the channels. I was in a bunch of punk rock bands, metal bands. I even played in a funk band called Fact City 4. We're a death metal type band called Cataclysm. We did all sorts of stuff. And Andy was always playing the stuff like Lenny Kravitz, Chili Peppers, Zeppelin, Rage Against the Machine. And when he started his Pro Guitar Shop demos, I was super happy because before it was anything huge and it had just started, I could hear his signature sound. I was like, that is Andy. He's put himself on the map. So as far as a pedal guru, I got to give my hat off to Andy. I love doing the metal stuff. There's a lot of guys out there that do the same thing that are huge and got a gazillion followers, but your post had me cracking up. I was like, that is great. Turn down Steve Vai. We turned down Clapton.
Absolutely. Well, Andy he's so knowledgeable about pedals, isn't he? I mean, he's a fantastic guitarist, but his knowledge, and when he posts a demo and he talks about the pedal, or posts a demo and he talks about the pedal, the list of information about it is really in depth and detailed.
He's the guy that's going to not fluff it up. It's not a commercial when he does a pedal demo. It's not a teaser. He's going to get into the stuff I don't really have a lot of knowledge about. He's going to talk about if it's MOSFET driven, or if it's got this kind of a transistor, or this kind of, he talks about the mojo inside the pedal and how it's sculpted to cultivate your sounds. Now, I like to be in depth with some of the stuff I'm doing, but it's nowhere close on the level Andy's at, because he's got so much experience with all sorts of tones. He's not just I don't know how to explain it. He's not just a niche kind of guy. He does everything. His niche is his knowledge. You know what I mean? My niche is just doing basic, awesome room tone demos of metal stuff. You know, if I get my hands on a fuzz, I'm going to do it. If I do something with a great delay and reverb, I'm going to do it. It's not just going to be a distortion or overdrive thing, but my forte is aimed at the more aggressive music. Andy's stuff is all over the place, whether it's jazz stuff, blues stuff, just folk stuff, classical stuff. He plays everything, and he plays it well. And his demos are just, that's why he is what he is. That's how he does what he does. You know, if anyone's going to do a demo, he started it all, in my opinion. I don't know if there was someone before him, but he kind of, he put it on the map. You know, we both grew up in Irvine, California, and later on he moved to Oregon, and that's where he was doing his pro guitar shop stuff. And then I know later on when I was at the NAMM show, he was with Reverb. I didn't get to see him at the show, but everybody was talking about him there. And now I guess it's just Andy demos. So
yeah,
he's one of my inspirations for doing what I do. You know, it started out, people were like, you know, since you're not in a band anymore, Greg, you know, you should throw some stuff out there. Cause people used to love to just come over to my house and I'd tinker around, have a cabinet in the living room. And I'm like, listen to this, you know? And it was funny. I'd have a couple of friends show up, and then their friends show up, and we'd have little house parties. And instead of a DJ, everyone's sitting around my living room smoking weed, watching me play guitar. And I'm like, what is this? Get out of my house. It's 2:00. It's 2 a.m., you know? But, you know, a couple of friends back in the day were like, you should put yourself out there and do a YouTube. And I was actually really nervous. I got anxiety stuff. I was like, I don't know if anyone will like it. I'm better behind a kit in a band, or with my foot on the monitor playing guitar in a band. You know, I like to be that vibe. But as far as a YouTube personality or a YouTuber, whatever you call it, I was like, I guess I could try eking in there and doing a few things and talk about some guitar stuff and see what happens, you know. And so far it's been 2 years now, and it's kind of cool to see how it's grown. You know, I don't want to say it's grown super fast, because there's some people out there, like, I don't know, I dumb myself down a lot because there's people out there with a gazillion subscribers, you know what I mean? But I really just do it for the fun of it, the hobby of it, and for my love of music. It's like the air we breathe. Music's that important to me. So if I'm not writing songs, I'm writing riffs on YouTube. If I'm not writing riffs on YouTube, they're in my head when I'm at work, and I come down to the studio and my wife's like, what are you doing upstairs? I'm like, I got this idea in my head. I just got to lay it down and track it real quick, or record it with the phone for something later. Or, you know, that's why I really like Instagram. That's where I came up with the name for the YouTube back in the day, 2 years ago, when I came up with Angry Tones riff clips, is because I realized I was recording these videos and putting them on Instagram, and it wouldn't, a couple of years ago, Instagram wouldn't play the whole video. They didn't have Instagram TV. It was just, it had to be a 58 or something second clip. So I was like, shit, what do I do? You know, and my wife Natalie's like, just play the riff for 58 seconds. I was like, all right, I guess I could do like a loop or something, you know? So I started just writing. If I had something that was going to be a future song, or just a great idea and I wanted to put it out there, or a pedal and a tone that I had dialed in with the knobs and stuff like that, I'd go upstairs, track it real quick, and throw out my Angry Tones riff clip, you know? And then that was the name I used for my YouTube as well as my Facebook. But that's how it all started.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I like about your demos. They're incredibly honest. They're very, very down to earth, really honest. I just, it's really nice. I think that's the nice thing about it. And you've got some pedals. I can see that one behind you there. In particular, you've got, I think, is that one that you've got? Is that your very own pedal? The Greg Campbell,
the colorful one.
Yeah.
I got a little stand here with some pedals on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the one you can see. You talking about this?
Oh no, what wasn't that? But I've seen that one quite recently.
This just came out from a guy called Gear Ant. He makes some incredible, awesome enclosures, and he made this for me just to kind of show off, put it online, talk about it on my channel. But before I do, I'm getting some ideas from some awesome builders out there that are just, friends of mine online and stuff like that, people that I call friends, because they're good people and they've been good to me. And I'm going to try and have them make something out of this that's, I guess, a secret right now. I don't really know yet, but there's a lot of ideas going on in my head. But
yeah, because
this is the one this is the last demo I'd done on YouTube. It'll probably be my last demo till 2021 was this one.
Yeah.
That was the Cherry Fuzz Sustainer from Vaderin Pedals. This guy makes awesome stuff. I'm not usually a fuzz guy. Fuzzes, to me, I think of fuzz, I think of like, your vintage, Jimi Hendrix vibes and some of those older tones and stuff like that. But this thing is grunge all day, Smashing Pumpkins. You can get some really good sounds out of this thing. Which one were you looking at? I got a little stand here.
The purple one, isn't that your own? I can't see.
This is a little secret weapon here. Have you ever heard of the Earthquaker Devices plumes?
Yes.
That's a very popular pedal in all types of aspects of music. This is a plumes clone on steroids that I have not done a demo yet. So I'm glad you noticed this in the shot. It's not my signature pedal.
Because you've got a signature pedal looks it's the same sort of color, isn't it?
It's very similar. I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
This is the Noise Pollution's plush box. This thing is gorgeous.
Whoa.
Yeah, ridiculous. Danny Kreider is probably one of my favorite builders right now, and he's an independent builder. He does it all himself. I didn't know if many people know, but he works with auto body in the auto industry. So all his finishes are the best finishes you'll ever see out there. He treats them the same way you would a freaking Stingray Corvette. This has just got a really nice sheen to it. It's tough as a tank. I've actually dropped it a few times and it's perfectly fine. No scratches, no dings, no nothing. This is a plush box. This is his version of a plumes, but since he made it for me, he did do some tweaks to it to give it a little bit more aggression. And of course, it's got his signature Noise Pollution logo there with a little biohazard symbol. But yes, the signature pedal is a dual boost and a drive combination that he made for me. That's the Angry Tones edition. He actually calls that pedal the Gearbox. That's this one here.
And
that's the gear.
Is that the same finish as the plumes clone?
Very similar, but without the glitter. This one just has a like kind of a pearl flake to it, but not a glitter flake.
That is cool.
Maybe he even put my name on the side of it, which is pretty awesome. Angry Riffs edition right there. But this thing's another animal. This is great because he knows I play a lot of down-tuned type stuff. I used to get into the 7-string and 8-string stuff. I never owned an 8-string, but I used to tune my 7s to G sharp and A. So I wanted something that's going to be even more articulate when you're in those lower tunings where it starts to get a little bit muddy or too saturated.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm all 6-string to the hilt. I don't play 7s anymore, but all my 6 strings are tuned to C sharp and B flat. And very rarely, sometimes I go back to just drop D. But to get those super tight sounds, everyone's got a pedal nowadays. It's a great time to be a guitarist. There's always these tight and aggressive pedals. You got all sorts of great companies out there. But when he designed this one for me, this is kind of a mix between what a Fortin 33 does to your sound as far as a clean boost. And it's the other side is a tube screamer that's got basically this is the first pedal I've ever seen, Steve, that has a chug knob.
That's right. Yes, I remember you saying that and demonstrating that.
Yep, he designed that just for me. And having a chug knob on here, that's your boost. That's what increases your presence and high end to get that more articulate sound. And then the other three knobs are where you get your EQ, your drive, and of course your volume. So that pedal is actually really impressive, especially for these. I hope more people will get turned on to Noise Pollution's pedals, because if you're a 7, 8, 9 string guy, my signature pedal is gonna like really shine for those guys, because the lower you tune, the more muddy your guitar tone gets, and the more gain you add to it, the more muddy your tone gets. The more low end you add, the more muddy your tone gets. You put this thing in your chain and it's ridiculous. It brightens. It's like taking a blanket off your amplifier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the old Mesa dual rectifiers have a really great tone. That's another thing I get in trouble for. A lot of guys are like, oh, the dual recs sound like crap. You have to have an overdrive. Actually, you don't. They sound incredible mic'd up in a studio. However, when you want to push them over the edge and you throw overdrives and boost them in there, it really does magnify its sound and give it a different sparkle to its tone. That's why I use the term lifting a blanket off your amp. It's like a new shine to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a new drive. I don't even own a Mesa Boogie anymore. I wish I did. I've gone Randall. I recently acquired this Randall T2.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys out there that love the T2s, the V2s, the V Max. These are older Randall heads that are actually considered hybrids. And I don't know exactly what makes them 100% hybrid, because it's funny to me. They're driven, they got a solid state MOSFET power section, but the power section is also ran by a tube. And then the preamp section has three 12AX7 tubes. So it's kind of like a tube amp.